Good evening. Thank you for joining us for Nihita Bisita. We start this evening's episode with this tiny little flag flying in the breeze in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican City in Rome. In 1985, more than 200 of the faithful carried this flag on a pilgrimage to Rome for a ceremony that very few people in all of Christendom have ever attended, the beatification of a person, the final step before sainthood. Considering the brutal manner in which the native population was treated by the Spaniards in the early history of Guam, it is a wonder indeed that 300 and some years later, Guam would be leading the movement to have a priest killed by their own ancestors elevated to sainthood, and that a son of Guam, Archbishop Felixberto Camacho Flores, would be the one to provide the impetus for the movement which had remained dormant for 300 years. In the days of conquest of new lands to enrich their national treasures, claiming new territories for one's country was accomplished by the planting of the cross. The sword of the conquistadors was inseparable from the cross of the clergy. In effect, on the one hand, the sword of the conqueror struck mightily to subjugate natives in the New World. This was followed, by the other hand, with a cross promising salvation. To put it in modern terms, it was a mission impossible for the priests. Despite the hostile atmosphere that prevailed during the early days of the Catholic mission, however, the missionaries succeeded in establishing a strong foundation for the Catholic faith and was to influence greatly the culture of Guam up to the present day. The superior of the mission that came to Guam in 1668, Father Diego Luis de San Vitores, was born in Burgos, Spain in 1627 and chose early in his life to become a Jesuit and to work in the new territories across the seas. He eventually succeeded in getting himself appointed to the mission in the Philippines, and after 2 years of traveling via Mexico and Guam, shown in red, he eventually reached the Philippines. He was astonished, however, that 150 years after Magellan's landing on Guam, there was no mission in the Marianas. Through his individual pleas to his family and the crown in Spain, he was eventually authorized to establish a mission on Guam after 5 years in the Philippines. But he literally had to build a ship for the journey. Since there was no direct route from the Philippines at the time, he had to sail to Acapulco first, and then catch another ship and backtrack to Guam, traced on this map in orange. By the time Father San Vitores reached Guam, he had established a remarkable reputation for devotion to his priestly duties. At every location he served, starting with his native Spain, however brief or lengthy the stay, he was asked not to leave by government and church officials, and above all by those he had introduced and converted to Catholicism. But he heard a calling from somewhere, and he would not rest until he answered that call. He endeared himself to the Chamorros in the Marianas by learning and speaking their language and humbling himself before them by performing all sorts of tasks of the commoners. He discarded the name Islas Ladrones in favor of Islas Marianas. He also named the various islands after saints and gave Guam the name Isla de San Juan. He established the Colegio de San Juan de Latran, the forerunner of the Royal College, for the training and education of promising young people under the supervision of his fellow Jesuits, renowned for their excellence in the field of education. He traveled to neighboring islands under the most adverse conditions to bring the cross to the people. His success did not go unnoticed, and he had his enemies among the leaders in the local population. His life ended at the age of 45 years when he was killed by Chief Matapan for baptizing his daughter without his permission. By the time of his death, he was regarded so highly for his work as a Jesuit priest that the process for his beatification was started in Manila in 1672 and also in Toledo, Spain in 1688. When Father San Vitores realized that he was about to be killed by Matapan, he supposedly said these words, Si Diyos maasi Matapan, literally meaning, may God have mercy on you, Matapan. Significantly, the same expression today, Si Diyos maasi, still meaning, may God have mercy on you, is our way of saying thank you. That Father San Vitores continues to enjoy the affection and loyalty of the preponderance of the population of Guam tells us that our people are aware of the old saying, judge the man for his deeds and not by the misdeeds of others. No doubt you recognize that Aten has a Christo, the name by which we know the song that the choir is singing, is in the background. Everyone knows that song. In fact, I have heard it in Mexico, in Central America, in South America, and in Baltimore. You see, the song that we know as Aten has a Christo is known elsewhere in the world as Marcha Pontificia, the anthem of the Holy See, and it is played wherever the Pope goes. You ask how did that musical score get to Guam? Now, would you believe me if I told you that San Vitores brought it with him? Guaho si Ben Blas, si Jews Mahase.